I miss you. I ain't gonna lie, man. That Drake and Party Next Door shit gets better and
Yeah.
better. It's really good. It's really good, bro. Like, motherfuckers need to stop hating on that guy.
Oh, on Drake.
Yeah, they just need to cut it out, bro. No
Wow.
bullshit.
Well, all the casuals are hating on him just because of what Kendrick did at the Super Bowl. You know that.
It gets even crazy. Yeah, it's getting a little even crazier now with that shit. But like the Conan
I'm
O'Brien shit
saying.
was out of that Conan O'Brien shit. The Oscars was out of pocket.
That's what I'm saying. Like all the casuals are hating now.
Yeah, it's gotten to another degree. Man, shout out to Arkansas though handling business last night.
They
Iowa
did.
State, what a bunch of hoes. Double overtime in Ames. How does that even fucking happen?
Wow, they got down big.
Yeah,
Yuck.
I seen they let up like a 14-1 run. It was
Yeah.
crazy. Okay, we are back. It is College Hoops RX with Sosa Picks and Spin Doc Sports. You already know what it is. Make sure you are following us both on social media, and make sure you guys subscribe to the Daily Bread Network YouTube channel. Spin, good morning. How you feeling? We just had a Tuesday night filled with amazing things in college hoops. Got some good endings, got some weird endings, got the upsets. It was a little bit of everything last night.
Uh,
Um,
what?
what are your thoughts on what we witnessed on Tuesday night? I give my thoughts on a couple games after you
Yeah.
start us off.
Uh, March is marching. It's here. There's so many good games. There's so many fun finishes. Big shout out to Texas A&M. Handled business, got a huge win that's probably going to solidify them as a 2 seed unless they totally piss down their leg in the SEC tournament. So some people were kind of saying, well, could they make a case for a 1? No, probably not. There's too many teams with much fewer losses ahead of them, but they probably solidified themselves for a 2 seed. And there was a fun game, even though it didn't really make a difference in standings or seedings. Arizona State was a hell of a lot of fun, 113-100. Not overtime either. There was just points upon points upon points.
No
And
defense being
then
played. I saw that I was about to watch that,
yep,
and because it came on right after the Texas A&M
yep, yep.
Auburn game, and when I saw like they were just, it was just like you said, zero defense being played, a lot of talk about players missing out of the lineup and stuff. So I didn't have any action, but like you said, wildly entertaining.
Yep. Yep. And then the last one for me was shout out to Texas. We're going to go over bracketology in just a minute here. They're not where they need to be right now, but they helped their cause. They did what they had to do. They got the dub in OT at Mississippi State, which is Starkville's a really tough place to play this year. So snapped a really ugly stretch that they were on. They have another chance to get another quad 1 win against OU on Saturday. That probably won't put them in the tournament either, but I'll explain more about where Texas is at when we get to bracketology. So what about you?
Man, had Texas A&M easy. Winning at the crib, senior night. I mean, you could talk about whatever narrative you want. They absolutely murdered Auburn on the offensive boards last night. I mean, like if you followed Texas A&M at all this year, something that's really interesting is the fact that missed shots are part of their offense.
Yep.
They crash so hard, and they play this physical style of offense and defense that you just have to adapt to. We've talked about them before. Like their only issue is at times they struggle to score the basketball.
Yep.
But when their formula is working, where they're missing shots, getting second chances, third chances, and their defense is given an opportunity to really ratchet up. Also, Broom was banged up. He kept reaching at his shoulder. I was kind of surprised Pearl left him in the game. Something to look at entering conference tournament play. Didn't really like the way he was looking all night. Looked like a bit of he just didn't look the same. I don't think he should have been playing after he started clutching his shoulder. And we've already seen him have issues with that throughout the season. Not really a good look, in my opinion. Shout out to Calipari. Understood the assignment, went on the road at Vanderbilt. Late start, right? 10 p.m. Eastern start for a college basketball game is very rare. Came out sluggish and then hit a switch. DJ Wagner did absolutely nothing in the first half. Team took off and just started putting belt to ass. So shout out to Arkansas and Calipari handling business, hanging on by a thread. You already know what it is when it comes to that. His teams find a way to perform well towards the end of the season. Once it comes to tournament time, this is a trending thing that's always taken place with Calipari. It's nothing new.
Yep. Well, speaking of that, let's go into bracketology. So movement upon movement upon movement. There's been a lot of stuff going on so far. There was a world, because the first team I want to talk about is Indiana. There was a world where Indiana could have actually not only gotten in, but also could have gotten a bye and avoided the first four. That they may have hurt themselves last night with the loss to Oregon. Oregon is a quad one team, so it's not gonna probably knock them out of the tournament. But after their little win streak, when they beat Michigan State at Michigan State, they beat Purdue with that just absolutely insane second half where they outscored them, where they outscored Purdue 48-21 after being down at halftime. Handled business like they were supposed to against Penn State and Washington. They had actually moved into getting a bye in the first round and not having to play on Tuesday. They're probably going to move back. They can help themselves out now by getting a win on Saturday at Ohio, or not but against Ohio State. You lose against Ohio State, now you're back on the bubble. So shout out to Woodson in his last season there, getting them back into contention to get there. Not the best loss last night, but not one that's going to kill them. So Indiana, most bracketologists, me too, still has them as in. You talked about Arkansas, and yeah, they've been living on the edge for pretty much the last 2 months. They've been in either a bye, last four in, first four out. They handled their business last night. I think if they get a win on Saturday, which they certainly can, to beat Mississippi State at home, if they get a win, I think that will lock it up. I think they're probably in no matter what, but I think that will lock it up where regardless of what happens in the SEC tournament, they should be in. And that's one thing that I've talked about on here before, is that you want to get if you're one of those teams living on the bubble, you want to get yourself in a position where regardless of what happens in your conference tournament, you could lose and go one and done, and you're still okay. You don't want to be in a situation where you have to win multiple games in your conference tournament because you're seeing these teams for the third time. And, I'm not a huge believer in that. Well, the third time, it's hard to beat a team three times. Not really. Not in power conference college basketball. But what it is,
that's the biggest lie ever told in sports.
I don't believe
that is one of the biggest lies that are told. It is not hard to beat a team three times. People love to lie about that, but it's actually always the complete opposite. It's relatively easy for a team that's won twice to beat a team a third time. That's one of the biggest lies in all of sports.
Yep. And before we get back to it, I just got to give shout out to Jose with the humble brag. Going to Cabo, enjoy it, man. Enjoy it. Hey, I'm looking out my window right now, and we got 1.5 feet of snow here in Minnesota. So enjoy it, my guy.
It's supposed to rain and thunderstorm all day in Philly. So
yeah, it's like
this guy.
It's like ankle deep snow, but enjoy it, man. Enjoy it. All right. So, but yeah, Arkansas probably solidified themselves no matter what. But they can lock it up with a win on Saturday. They can also lock it up, I think, with at least one win in the SEC tournament. Next one that I wanted to talk about was Boise. They by most metrics, they're in. After an ugly stretch where they were sitting on January 22nd. They were sitting at 13-7 and had just lost to Colorado State, which is a quad two loss, a low quad two loss. And then they went on a little stretch, got whipped at San Diego State, but haven't lost since. And so they get Colorado State back on Friday night at home. I would expect them to win that game by a pretty comfortable margin. They're absolutely on a roll right now. Nobody has come within 5 points of them in this this 5-game win streak that they've had, and only one team has come within 10. So they are just whipping teams right now. Colorado State is a must win because right now they're sitting probably right on the last 4 in. Lenardi has them as his last team in, which is probably close to accurate. But beating Colorado State's a must. You do that and you win at least one game in the Mountain West tournament and don't have anything crazy happen on the back end. They might be good. This is a team that was in the next 4 out not less than 2 weeks ago. We were talking about how they absolutely positively had to get a win against New Mexico back on February 19th. That's exactly what they did. And again, they haven't lost since. Their absolute destruction of Utah State at home by 17 in a game where they were up by over 20 for most of the second half really, really helped them. So Boise is probably in at the moment. On the other side, we talked about Oklahoma a little bit earlier. Oklahoma is right now currently sitting out by most metrics. They have a chance tonight. We're going to talk about that game. I saw that Adams in the chat already kind of talked about where the action was on it. I'm going to talk about that game. It's not one of my plays, but I'm going to talk about it against Mizzou. They need a win in the worst possible way, because they got to go to Texas on Saturday where they haven't had much success. And they actually lost at home to Texas earlier this year. So OU only has one win since February 1st. So they only have one win over the last month. Now, granted, all these losses, with the exception of LSU, have been quality losses, but they're still L's. And regardless of what your record is, regardless of the conference that you play in, you just can't rack up this many losses and expect to make an at-large push for the NCAA tournament. So getting one of these last 2 is an absolute must for the Sooners. They need to, they probably would really, they'd really benefit themselves if they won both. But one of these games is an absolute must. And at home is always where you want to try to get it, because you don't want to try to go on the road against a team that's already beat you and try to be messing around like that. Because if they don't get either one, now you're talking about having to win 2, possibly 3 games in the SEC tournament, which I don't know about that one. I don't know if that one's going to work. So Sooners need a win in the worst way. There's a split on Xavier. A few guys have them in because of their recent win streak. Lenardi still has them out. They might actually be moving back in because they absolutely whipped Creighton on Saturday at home. They got one tonight. I know that Sosa is going to be talking about that game in just a little bit here. But these next 2 are must wins for them. They are in a situation right now where they absolutely have to get Butler. They have to get Providence to even have any realistic shot at the tournament. And last but not least, that I want to talk about is the Tar Heels for North Carolina. They have been handling business. They've been doing what they need to do ever since the loss to Clemson back on February 10th. They haven't lost since, 6 wins. However, they have all been low quad 1 or high quad 2 wins. So they don't really have like that signature conference win yet. They lost to Clemson, they lost to Duke, they lost to Wake Forest, they lost to Louisville. So, the upper echelon of the ACC, they haven't handled very well. They obviously get a shot. At Duke, and we'll see what happens. So for UNC, this could be a situation where, if they lose to Duke and then they go and they lose in the first round of the ACC tournament,
they're done. They're cooked. If that happens, it's cooked.
There's no shot. There's no chance.
You beat Duke, you're in.
Yep.
You beat Duke, you're in.
Yep. 100%.
That's all the chips are in the middle of the table for that game.
Yep.
In my opinion, you beat them, you're in. Kind of like with Texas A&M last night. Texas A&M wasn't on the bubble or anything, but after winning last night, they're getting no lower than an 8 seed. That's pretty clear. They could go out first round. They're going to be a top 7, 8 seed, no question. It's the same sort of situation with North Carolina, in my opinion. We beat Duke, we're in the tournament. We're in the field of 68, in my opinion.
Yep. No, I agree. If they don't beat Duke, then they have to win probably 2 games in the ACC tournament. One one win against a lower seed, which is what they've been doing, isn't going to cut it. So they're 2 paths in my view, other than, again, craziness where all the bubble teams just all of a sudden just lose, is either beat Duke or you are competitive against Duke and you win at least one game in the ACC tournament. That gives you a shot. 2 wins in the ACC tournament might do it. 3 for sure does. So that's what UNC is looking at right now. And then all the rest of the next 4 out teams on most lists: SMU, Cincinnati, Nova, Wake Forest. Nope. Not even worth talking about right now. They are all pretty solidly out. The only last one that I wanted to mention, even though it's not going to knock them out, they got to be careful. San Diego State. They were one of the last 4 buys coming into last night. They dropped the second game against UNLV, which I know that Jose is listening. So for Jose, shout out to the Rebs. They got it done. And UNLV at Thomas and Mack has been like a kind of a nightmare team and situation for the Aztecs. So dropped another one last night, and that one could hurt them. I don't think it knocks them out yet. What it does, though, is on Saturday, it makes their game against Nevada a must win, because you lose that, you lose to UNLV, then you lose to Nevada. Now you're talking about them probably being out and needing 1, maybe 2 wins in the conference tournament, which I still think they'll get. So just wanted to mention it. It's not something to go in depth on because it probably doesn't hurt them too much, but Aztecs got to be careful now, because when you're in the Mountain West, which is not a power conference, it's not a mid-major, it's kind of in between. When you're in the Mountain West, 6 conference losses already, albeit most of them to the upper echelon of the conference in Utah State and et cetera. But they do have a loss against Colorado State as well. So they got to be careful. You beat Nevada and you win a first round conference tournament game, should be good. But just something to watch for if they don't handle business against Nevada and or go out in the first round of the Mountain West tournament. I don't think those things happen, but something to watch for.
Yes, sir. And we're going to get into today's slate immediately. We're going to lead with the Clemson at Boston College game. Obviously, Clemson's been probably the second best team, and they've been the second best team in the ACC. They're laying 14.5 on the road against the Boston College team that's not very good. We got an over-under of 137.5, relatively low at this point of the year for a conference game. What are we betting on in this one, and why?
Yeah, Clemson is rolling at this point. And they've been especially rolling in the early parts of games, getting business handled right away, and then getting through the game pretty easily. As you mentioned, Boston College not very good. You can see some of their defensive metrics. They foul a ton. They are bottom of the conference, and if I switch to season long, they're sub 200 in all field goal metrics for defense here, 2-pointers and 3-pointers. And the other thing that Boston College doesn't have is a lot of size. You can see their average height, 231st. That is not good against the Clemson team that just has length upon length upon length upon length. So tons of length on the wing, tons of length pretty much everywhere, and tons of scoring ability everywhere. So when I look at this one, I look at Boston College's defense has just been absolutely poor over several games. They do try to play a slow down game, but what they also don't do is they also have trouble stopping their opponent, especially from the 3-point line. So Clemson has been shooting the 3 relatively well over the entire season. They're second in the conference, and especially over this recent stretch. They made 9 3-pointers against Notre Dame. They had multiple games around here where they've made 10 3-pointers, and they have made a good number of them in the first half. Specifically, for example, putting up almost 40 against SMU in the first half. They put up 41 against Notre Dame. They've had multiple games where they've had good scoring first halves. They just have way too much inside and outside against Boston College here. So my look for this one is on their first half team total, and it is on the over. So over 36.5 against Boston College. Clemson, this would be a game where they would be wise to just handle business, get the win, get a big lead, get out of town, and solidify at least the number 2 seed, or try to get the number 2 or 3 seed in the ACC tournament. So Clemson, first half team total over 36.5. You on mute.
Yes, sir. Obviously, the next game we're going to get into is based on location. We spoke a little bit about Xavier versus Butler in the lead up to bracketology. The game's at Hinkle. You got Xavier as a very short favorite on the road. I'm not picking Butler to win the game, but I am going with the under. The under 154.5 is absolutely free money. I don't think either team's going to even break 70 points. They go to that gym and people forget how to shoot the basketball. They forget how to finish at the rim. They forget how to do everything. It should be a brick fest. Should be a relatively ugly game. And if it's not an ugly game, Xavier, I think, will probably figure out a way to pull it out. But again, it's some level of rivalry to it. These two teams have been relatively good in this conference for years. It's always a close matchup when they play. And I personally, like I said, I like the under. I like a thought it out, methodical, boring basketball game between these teams. And I fully expect for the game to go under 154.5 points. That's my first and only play in this game. It is the Xavier Musketeers and the Butler Bulldogs under 154.5. And yeah, we're meeting at the window on that one. It should be relatively easy. Hinkle is an ugly, ugly place to play basketball.
All right. All right, next up, we got Oklahoma State against Central Florida. Oklahoma State, Central Florida, tips at 7 Eastern. UCF laying 5.5 at home with a very, very high total for a very, very good reason of 165.5. So for this one, I'll make it pretty simple for the play. We're on the home team, UCF, on the Knights with a minus 5.5. Oklahoma State has just been absolutely terrible on the road, just absolutely awful. They've had multiple. Now, granted, some of these were to the top part of the Big 12, but they have had only one road conference game this year, only one, where they have come within 10 points of their opponent, and that was against TCU on February 12th. TCU, also another team towards the bottom of the conference. They have some pretty ugly home road splits from a shooting perspective. I mean, it's tough to compare UCF with some of the top teams in the Big 12, so I'm not going to go over like all the blowouts that Okie State had against the top teams, but they did lose to Kansas State by 30. They did lose to Baylor, who is a little bit better, but they did lose to Baylor by 10. They lost to Utah by 21. They lost to West Virginia by 19. I mean, you see where I'm going with this. Oklahoma State has been absolutely horrendous on the road in the Big 12. They're also not shooting the ball very well lately either. 44% effective field goal percentage over their last three, only 46.8% on the road. This is a great neutralizer for a UCF defense that, as you can see, is last in the Big 12 in overall defensive efficiency. It's better on their home floor. They've had some pretty ugly defensive performances on the road, but their overall effective field goal percentage at home, so home road split 50.1% at home versus 53.8% on the road, and you get an Oklahoma State team that has just been absolutely brutalized on the road this year. You also get a UCF team that has been not like stellar, but not bad on their home floor. Beat Utah, beat Kansas State, both of them by 4, but and then we're reasonably competitive against several of the big dogs. Whipped TCU by almost 30, and just barely almost nipped Houston back in January. So there's just no confidence that I have in any sense on this Oklahoma State team when they're away from home. So play for this one is UCF Knights -5.5 against Oklahoma State.
Let's get it. Yeah, I mean, you said everything you need to say about OK State. Those days of them actually being a relevant program are done, unless they get like some level of stars and star pulling up, or you see UCF. UCF got. I was reading up on them. They have a huge NIL collective. Just a random thing in regards to them. They have a ton of money that they can spend on players.
Yep.
They just and they have, like, they just haven't panned out. They went and got Mikey Williams and a couple of other these like ex All-American high school players, and they just neither have worked out just yet. They've had injuries, and they just haven't been able to get right there at UCF. But I do believe you're on the right side. We got one more game on the schedule.
Wait. I just wanted to address Luke's comment.
Okay.
I mean, Oklahoma State team total under as well. Might have been the full game under. Yeah. The only problem that I have with that one is that both of these defenses just leak like sieves. So for me, it's probably a stay off spot. It's probably going to depend a little bit more on if either team is making shots early, because they both should.
Joe Tooney just got traded to the Bears. I'm sorry, that was a huge deal. That's a big deal. So go ahead. My fault. My fault. I just had to. That's crazy.
So anyways, under might be a look. Not it's probably going to be a stay off spot for me from a total spot for that one. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I just got the NFL alert. That's completely out of here. But wow, that's just what the fuck.
All right, last one is the Sun Belt tournament.
My bad. I got it. Don't worry. Last game, the Sun Belt tournament. Louisiana taking on Old Dominion. 8:30 start time. You got Old Dominion short favorites at a -1.5, an over under of 137.5. It is tournament time. It is conference tournament time. And yeah, why are we betting on this game? And who are? That's a lot of red. All I see is red on the screen.
Yeah, it's not pretty. So Louisiana. So if you don't know how the Sun Belt tournament's organized, it's organized in ladder format. It's like the West Coast Conference, where if you're the number one seed, you get like a octuple bye or whatever it is, or 1 or 2 seed. So all the advantages to the top teams in this one. And Louisiana played last night. They had an overtime game against Louisiana Monroe, which was just an absolute slugfest. And on official VIP plays last night, they pissed me off because it was the only official VIP play loss that we had. And the only reason why it lost, because we were on the under, was the fact that it went to overtime. Without overtime, we clear it easily. So Louisiana played last night. And now they get, right after an overtime game, they get an Old Dominion team that is, despite all the red that you see, they're actually a little bit better than that. What they've also been better at is against Louisiana. Beat them by 11 on the road on January 9th. And really kind of led that game wire to wire. The Cajuns, very, very slow paced team, very, very slug it out type of team. And also a team where they utilize a lot of guys on their bench, but they don't have a lot of solid contributors on their bench. Their leading scorer last night played 34 minutes. They have multiple guys that played 35 plus. And when you're in conference tournament time like this, especially against a team that matches up with you at least reasonably well, specifically for not fouling, for rebounding, Old Dominion rebounds the ball very, very well. You can see it's one of their few greens that they have here. And you have a Louisiana team that has really been shooting just completely subpar over their last 4 or 5 games. And to the point where 43.9% over their last 3, they only shoot 47.5% effective field goal percentage on the road to begin with. Old Dominion is obviously not like an offensive juggernaut, but there's a short spread on this one. This is a team that with Louisiana that played last night, and you have an Old Dominion team that has already handled business against them earlier this year. So for me, I'm going with the Monarchs. I'm going with Old Dominion -1.5. It's too short of a spread. I know that it's conference tournament time, but I always look for spots like this in smaller conferences where you get a lower seed coming off of an overtime game. The other thing that Old Dominion has is Sean Duber-Gordon. If you don't know who that is, he is kind of bounced around, but was one of the few bright spots on a really, really bad Siena team last year, and was their leading scorer at 18 points per game. He dropped 20 on Louisiana last time. 6'6" guy, nice range, shoots the three reasonably well, rebounds the ball reasonably well. And on the wings, Louisiana just has no answer for that. So again, dropped 20 last time pretty easily, and has been shooting the ball pretty well lately, playing pretty well. So to me, on a short spread, that's a pretty easy difference. So I will go with Old Dominion, the Monarchs, -1.5. I see Luke saying ODU -2.5. That's fine too. I see Mike says
UCF will take the game over.
Yep.
As in win the game, or as in
no.
Over.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of I'm kind of confused a little bit, but I guess it's the final total, the game going over. I don't know if it's
probably
take control of it.
It might. I don't know. Yeah. All right.
Nico said Florida and Marquette money line. Listen, I'm not opposed to that. Florida is, to me, I think they're a better team than Alabama, but I think that you got to be careful with that. I think Alabama really wants to get back after that huge heartbreak against Tennessee on the road. I think getting back home and getting comfortable is important. But Alabama's always susceptible to some sort of bullshit because they rely so much on they shoot so many fucking threes that if they miss, it could be ugly. Hard for me to bet on Marquette on the road at UConn, knowing that UConn is they need this game. If we're being honest, that's just my opinion. I don't know how you feel about those two. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's hard for me to trust Shaka Smart in a big game on the road in conference, but UConn is also pissed down their leg. It's probably a game that I just want no part of, to be honest with you. I'm probably just not even interested in that one. And Luke says, why am I leaning under? You almost have to in with a total that's that high, but that's one of those games that I just don't even mess with. From a totals perspective, just because it's so insanely high that you're like, man, do I really bet on the over here? I know Mo says might be 200 points scored in the game. Yeah, they could. What I actually like to do for those games is I actually like to look for it live. And what I like looking at doing is if both teams get off to a slow start, which sometimes happens against or in bigger games with two big time programs like that. What I like doing is seeing if I can get 3, 4, 5 points shaved off of the pregame total and then look to take the over. The same thing goes if the game, I don't like doing the opposite, because if the game between two effective and efficient offenses just starts off as an absolute blitz of points, chances are normally that continues throughout the entire game. You can have two big programs that start slow and then pick it up as the game goes on, especially when you have offenses as efficient as this. So I might look to just see if I can get a few, just even get 3 or 4 points off the total from the start of that one, and then look to jump on it, because then that's where you get value and you're not trying to beat a pregame line. I know Mike's saying OU money line. Let's talk about that one. Actually, let's talk about that one. Cause I said I would, because you got OU in an absolute must win spot.
Nice.
They're getting to almost desperation time now. You got a Missouri team that's laying 4.5 on the road against a team in desperation mode. I liked Adam's look in the chat about the over on this one. As far as the actual game goes, I like the balls that Mike has with picking the OU money line.
Balls.
I'm not ready to do that yet. What I am ready to do is to say, if you're going to look at the spread on that one pregame, look at OU 4.5. We've seen teams in this spot before where desperation time, need a win, got to have it, quad one program, and they're at home and they handle business. The only team that didn't recently in that situation was Texas. And that was because they played Georgia, who was in the exact same spot and came in and just kind of smacked them around. So for me, I would look at Oklahoma plus. I would take the 4.5 on that one. To me, this just seems like it's going to be a one possession game to the end, which is also why I lean towards the total for this one. So other games I saw earlier. I saw Nico said Florida and Marquette money line as a plus money 2 leg. Yeah. I mean, UConn has done sillier stuff this year. This isn't the same UConn team. What's that?
I'm not mad at it, but it's difficult for me to bet on either of those teams in the situation that they are in tonight. If Alabama was coming off a win, I would have no problem. But Alabama going back home off a huge loss to Tennessee, very difficult for me to pick against them in their home building. It's senior night. Is it senior night for them, or do they have another home game before the season's over?
Is it UConn?
No, Alabama.
Oh, Alabama? I think it is. It must be. It would be senior night, yes.
And Florida's probably the better team, but listen, it's tough. That's a tough one for me, bro. I can't. Those are two tough games. If you bet it, I'm not mad at either. I'm not mad at you betting it. It's just like, again, for me personally, it's just difficult to make that decision. For real.
Yep.
It is.
Yep. Luke asking Washington USC under. If you're going to play that one, that's probably the way to play it. Both teams have had some shooting woes. I think that USC at least has some semblance of being able to defend Osborne. So yeah, if you're going to play that one, probably the under would be it. Logan saying he's with Mike about OU. I know Adams isn't going to like that one. And then, as we said,
Adam is not going to like that one.
OU Missouri over. Yeah, I'm not ready to go money line. I would probably play that one like a bitch and would probably just take the points and take the safety. I'd probably, put some potential juice at risk just to have the safety, because I do think it'll be a one possession game, though. I really do. I think that Oklahoma has to know that they are running out of chances fast to make any reasonable stake at an at-large bid.
How many fucking teams from the SEC are we going to put in the tournament? It's like basketball's football, bro. Like 80% of the fucking conference is going to make the tournament.
Well, we want to go through it real quick.
This fucking
Auburn
nuts,
1,
bro.
Florida 2, Alabama 3, Tennessee 4, Missouri 5, A&M 6, Ole Miss 7, Kentucky 8, Mississippi State 9, Vandy 10. So 10 for sure. After that, you probably get Arkansas at 11. Georgia can make a claim for 12. And then you have Texas and Oklahoma. So really, the only two teams that aren't going are, unless they win the conference tournament, which probably isn't going to happen, is LSU and South Carolina.
I was looking at that shit yesterday. I'm like, bro, like 20% of the fucking, or like 15% of the tournament field's coming from the SEC.
Yeah. So
this is crazy.
Right now, how I see it is LSU and South Carolina are no. Oklahoma and Texas are maybes. Georgia and Arkansas are probablys, and everybody else is in. So in theory, if Oklahoma and Texas both make little runs here, you could have everybody in the conference except for LSU and South Carolina in the tournament. Those are the only two teams that aren't going. Everybody else has a chance or is in already.
Used to be college football. You think NIL means something?
Oh yeah.
You think NIL means something now?
Oh yeah. Well,
there's a superior conference, bro. There's a superior conference in all of sports, in all of college sports. It's just showing a little bit more now. It's just you see it. Yep. You see it in football. You see it now in basketball. You about to start seeing it in all the female sports too. South Carolina's right there, right? You see South Carolina, right? Doing.
Yep.
Listen, I'm telling you, man. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing who really got the paper. You're seeing who really got the money. It's those SEC schools. They got the bag and they can spend it on anything. It's crazy.
I think between the Big Ten and the SEC, very probably is going to make up a third of the tournament field. Both of those conferences, because in the Big Ten, you got Michigan State 1, Michigan 2, Purdue 3, Maryland 4, Wisconsin 5, UCLA 6, Illinois 7, Oregon 8, and then from there, Indiana and Ohio State are probably, so that's potentially 9, 10. So you got 10 and you got 10 and you got potentially 12 to 14. Yeah, I mean you're looking at a third of the tournament field right there, because and then the other thing that you're seeing with NIL is not only are you seeing it in the SEC, but you're also seeing it very, very top heavy in other power conferences like the Big Ten, because one of the things that's been hurting Minnesota, and I know this just because I'm from here, is and this is why they lost Pharrell Payne to Texas A&M, was due to NIL, because A&M had a bag ready to offer him and Minnesota couldn't even match it. I heard, and I don't know if this is true, I heard that the most Minnesota could come up with was at least 50 to 100,000 less than what A&M offers. So you play in a mid-tier Big Ten school and maybe go to the NIT, versus you play for a power conference. It's going to be a number 2 seed. You start for them and you get 100K more. If I'm any of those kids, that's an easy choice. That's an easy choice.
I also want to make something clear. Something clear in regards to Villanova. I don't think any school in America has been fucked worse by NIL than Villanova basketball. They don't have a football program to push the athletic department. They do not have a top-tier football program to push the athletic department. The dependence on money from that basketball program to that school over the last decade is, you can't even compare it.
Yep.
And their inability to be able to compete with NIL hurts the philosophies of the teams that Jay Wright built. Jay Wright, when you went to go play for him, you knew you weren't going to be one and done. You knew you were going to be there for 2 to 3 seasons to get coached up and become the best version of yourself. That's no longer a thing in college basketball. If kids are committing from high school, and I was kind of like looking, because Neptune's probably going to get fucking fired.
Probably.
But Jay Wright, he got out at the right fucking time. Shout out to him. He knew what was coming. And instead of him looking like these other guys who just kind of look like they quit, like Tony Bennett and Leonard Hamilton, who look like he just checked the fuck out. These guys just look like they quit.
Honestly, Bill Self looks like he's defeated.
You're seeing it, and it's become a very weird dynamic now, where it's like, man, like the program can't be the same because we just don't got the paper. We just don't got the paper to match some of these guys. And kids aren't coming to college to get developed. So unless I recruit 22 and 23-year-olds from other schools that are and inferior conferences that are standouts, I'm not going to be able to compete. And that's what's going on at Villanova right now. That's what's happening at Villanova.
Yep. Totally 100% agree. Going down the list of conferences about like how many conferences are going to get more than one team in for certain. I got the ACC, the Big 12, the Big East, the Big 10, the Mountain West, the SEC, of course.
The West Coast. West Coast is going to possibly get 2. I think Gonzaga has been in the top 25 too long all season for them to not get in if they don't win the conference tournament. But if Gonzaga does win the conference tournament, there's a small chance that they'll be the only team that gets in.
Yeah, but
that's a possibility.
But that's 6 conferences that are going to get multiple teams in. That, I think, is going to be the lowest number that we've seen maybe ever. We're only, since the tournament expanded, so we're only 6 conferences get 2 teams, and only 4 conferences, I think, get more than 2 teams. ACC, Big 12, Big East, Big 10. Mountain West will get 2, most likely. Possibly 3 if they get San Diego State, Boise, and New Mexico. So 2, possibly 3. West Coast is getting 2 max. Big 10, Big East, Big 12, and the ACC are the only 4 conferences that are going to get more than 2 teams in. That is the most consolidated I have ever seen college basketball.
And listen, it makes it great because, you know, on Sunday, in 2 Sundays, we're going to be sitting at the computer screen bitching about 2 or 3 teams that didn't get in, knowing damn well that we knew they weren't getting in now.
Right.
That's what's going to happen. I love that you brought that up. I'll end my thoughts on that. We're going to talk about mid-major teams that deserve it. We're going to talk about how the field of 64 is not enough. They're going to talk about 68 is not enough. They're going to bitch about it. There's no way to ever get the sequencing right. There's no way to ever get the selection process right, because at the end of the day, because everybody doesn't compete and everybody doesn't have a chance, there's room to complain. And that's just the world we live in.
So, well, and on that note, I go and I look at the mid-major conferences this year, and you know, I love watching mid-major basketball. I really do. I love watching mid-major basketball. I can count on one hand the number of mid-major teams that I think could make a case for any kind of at-large bid over a bottom of the bracketology power conference team. UC San Diego, if they don't win their conference tournament, would be 1. Lipscomb, if they don't win their conference tournament,
Lipscomb's not getting in. They're getting ready for the NIT. They'll never let 2 teams in from that conference.
No. I'm not saying no. They're not going to. I'm just saying that even teams that I would say, okay, mid-major, yeah, they have a shot. Drake would be another one. I'm not even sure that Drake gets in if they don't win the MVC, if they don't win Arch Madness. I really don't, even at 27-3.
Because they've held them out. Remember, they held Drake out with 4 losses a couple of years ago because they didn't win the conference tournament. They had 4 fucking losses, didn't get into the NCAA tournament.
The biggest win that they have all season, and this is not to hate on Drake, because I love watching Drake. I love the way Drake plays.
Sounds like
ball.
You're hating on Drake.
No. I'm not going Kendrick. But no, Vanderbilt on a neutral floor back in November is the biggest win that they've had all season. So honestly, if they don't win Arch Madness, I think that Bulldogs fans have to sit on pins and needles on Selection Sunday. Nobody else from the MVC is getting in. And then you go and you look at the you go and you look at the rest of the mid-major conferences. I don't really see a 1. And that's one of the NIL effects. I think that the only other team, and I don't think that they deserve an at-large, even though I think they're going to destroy their conference tournament, would be McNeese. They've had a few games against.
Shout out to Will Wade. I'm a fan, bro.
They're fun to watch. They're fun to watch.
I'm gonna be totally honest. It's 2 coaches in college basketball that coach in the South that I think could take over a major program and really do it anywhere. Will Wade's one of them. And you already know how I feel about Chris Baird, but Will Wade, so slept on as a head coach, bro. Slept on. It's crazy.
Mike says Robert Morris. Yeah. I think that they could play with let me put it this way. I hope they win the Horizon. I really do. I hope they win the Horizon, because I think that whoever they get in the first round, I think they can for sure win a game. I think they can also they can also hang with a higher power conference team. But really, you go through that list and you got a few maybes and a few okay, but one hand, that's all you got. So the only one that I think that if they don't win their conference tournament, that there's going to be all the casual fan uproar on Selection Sunday is Drake, because if Drake loses, they'll have 4 losses. They've gotten held out with 4 losses before. They have only 1 real big win. They actually have 1 win the entire season against a tournament team, and that's Vandy. The rest of their schedule has been middle of the road quad 2 teams, and then obviously in the conference. So I'm not saying that they for sure get held out. There's some things that could happen on the back end that could get them in. But I think if Drake doesn't win the MVC tournament, I think that they're sitting nervously on Selection Sunday. I really do.
Totally agree. All right. Well, obviously we ran a little long today. A lot of good information though.
A lot to talk about.
Love to have the dialogue in regards to, like, for understanding's sake, for people to understand what's going on in regards to the landscape of college basketball. Again, SEC domination was not expected. Make sure you guys like the video, thumbs up the video, retweet it and repost it on Twitter. Make sure you guys subscribe to the Daily Bread Network on YouTube and catch us tomorrow with more free money. Appreciate y'all tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
Yep.